Is it time for the Mariners to swap out some bench pieces? Has Tayler Saucedo earned the trust of Scott Service? We'll answer that and more here on Mailbag Monday. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, August 7th, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Welcome to Mailbag Monday, the show where we answer your Mariners questions. Let's just hop right into them. We're going to start with Hunter here, who asks likelihood of Emerson Hancock getting called up soon and hopefully swapping out Jose Caballero and Mike Ford out. Ideally, would like to see Sam Haggerty and maybe Shiner. What do you guys think? So I would actually like to see Haggerty and Zach DeLoach. You would basically view Haggerty as the Caballero replacement and DeLoach as the Ford replacement, because with Ford you really just need the bat. It doesn't really matter positionally because you have other guys that can man first base. You have Dominic Canzone, you have Dylan Moore, you have Josh Rojas outside of just Ty France, so you don't really need to worry about covering first base in case of a Ty France injury on that front when it comes to Ford. And yeah, Haggerty's hitting out of his mind right now in the PCL, which, yeah, it's the PCL, but still, I think it's time for him to come back up with the big league club. So, yeah. Colby, do you agree? And also, when do you think we're going to see Emerson Hancock?
20 grade question. No, I do think we're going to see Hancock soon. I mean, you really don't have any choice, honestly, because the difference between Hancock and Malone or McCacken or any of those guys is pretty significant. He's just your best option. It doesn't necessarily mean he comes up and he's in the rotation right away, but you're going to need him to eat some innings. So whether that's as a, multi-inning reliever or as a piggyback guy with Woo, or maybe he gets a couple starts here and there and you push Woo to the pen for a little while, you're going to need to call him up. So it's going to be soon. There's really no reason to wait. Until the call-ups, September call-ups, because you're not even using Devin Sweet. So having, Hancock in the bullpen for 5 days in a row, it's not going to upset anything. You're not using that spot anyway. So Hancock should be up soon. I would just have him up for this homestand, but we'll see what they decide to do. And then, obviously Caballero, huge credit to him. He kept the Mariners second base spot afloat for a couple of months when Colton was really struggling. But he just doesn't do anything that Sam Haggerty doesn't. Right. And the only way Caballero can help you right now at the plate is if he gets hit by a pitch or if he walks. That's it. So in terms of the pinch running, Haggerty's perfectly capable base runner. Dylan Moore's perfectly capable base runner. So even the idea that he's our best base runner. Yeah, that's fine, but you can't give him 40% of your at bats, down the stretch at second base. So yeah, he needs to go down. Haggerty needs to be up. The second base platoon should be Rojas and Moore, and with Haggerty mixed in too. Ford is just bad. It struck midnight. He's a pumpkin again. Yeah. So yeah, I think you can go with Shiner if you want. It kind of depends on how the Mariners feel about lefty, righty. Shiner replaces the power that Ford brings, but DeLoach replaces the handedness issue if the Mariners think there is one. So, yeah, I think you could pretty much sell me on either one at this stage. Just kind of what do the Mariners want to do with that spot? And Shiner's, decent enough at third that he could play there and he could play first. But yeah, me personally, I would swap Ford for Haggerty right now. And if you still want to keep Caballero up just as a pinch runner, sure, I think that's dumb. But yeah, I'd rather have Caballero than Ford because at least Cabby can play multiple positions and can run the bases. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think they do need to make a move, at least, those 2 moves on the bench. And then they probably should call up Baroa or Hancock for Sweet. So, yeah, I do think there are some moves that they should make.
Yeah, Mike Ford, since the All-Star break, is 7 for his last 50 with 27 strikeouts. So it's time.
Yep.
Big kudos to him for everything
Yep.
that he was able to contribute when he was hot. He helped the Mariners offense stay afloat for a really crucial point in the season. So yeah, credit where credit is due, but it's probably time to move on there because it's not like he's making up for the lack of offense and defense. So
yeah, that's just showbiz. Sorry. Thanks for all your help, but we got to do better. So see ya.
Next question here comes from Momo. Like others have said, could it make sense to pick up Christian Arroyo for second base? I know we haven't given Josh Rojas many opportunities, but he hasn't looked great either. Would we have to DFA him or could we send him down? So real quick on that, yes, Rojas has 2 minor league options remaining. So yes, you can send him down and you can send him down next year as well if you want to. As for Christian Arroyo, he's already cleared waivers and been outrighted to AAA. So he's no longer an option for the Mariners. I also saw some other people ask about Ramon Laureano, who was DFA'd by the A's. He was picked up today by the Guardians. So he is also not an option for the Mariners either. But even if those 2 guys were, I don't really have much interest in either one personally.
No, I mean, Laureano, what, is he going to take at-bats away from Canzone? Like, why? He's not better than Canzone. He's not better than Moore. Like, he's not better than Haggerty at this stage. And Arroyo is essentially right-handed Josh Rojas. Right. I mean, when they're at their best.
WRC plus this year.
Yeah.
Reverse splits guy, too.
Right. And, like, when they're at their best, they're, like, 105 to 108 WRC plus guys. The only difference is that Rojas is actually a more valuable defender. So, no, that wouldn't have made much sense either. So, yeah, you should definitely be looking at the waiver wire, though. Like, keep an eye on that. Sure. But, not just because you've heard of the person doesn't mean that it's a good claim.
There's going to be a lot of bad players that get DFA'd.
Sure.
So, just because you recognize the name doesn't mean that they're necessarily a good fit. But, yeah, I understand why you guys asked. I just, no interest on my part. But also, those guys aren't even options anymore. So, yeah. All right. Scott wants to know, who do you think gets the majority of starts at second base from here on out? It's going to be Josh Rojas until further notice. But in my opinion, it should be Dylan Moore. Now, that's obviously dependent on health, but and small sample size, but he has actually hit righties pretty well so far this year, especially as of late. So I would like to see Demo get more starts over at second. And it shouldn't really be dependent too much on matchup. But yeah, it's going to be Rojas.
Yeah. There's still the issue of what can Dylan Moore handle physically. I mean,
yeah,
we keep on thinking he should be back to 100%, but we don't know, right? We have no idea. And there is a little bit based on matchup. There are some righties that are going to give Dylan Moore troubles. And to be fair, Rojas is giving nobody trouble. So it probably should be Demo, but I'm totally fine with them working in some kind of platoon. It doesn't have to be strictly handedness. It can be about matchups. And, at the very least, Dylan Moore, when he does make contact, there's a pretty high probability he's going to hit the ball hard. And typically when you hit the ball hard, good things happen. So, it probably should be Demo, but Rojas is going to get a lot of the work. And I totally get why, because if you can just get him to be an average bat the rest of the way, it's a really valuable bench guy or a really valuable, platoon guy. Like, there's a lot of value to Rojas if you can get him hitting. Just, early returns on that, not looking great. But, I think it should be Demo with Haggerty mixed in. But I think it's ultimately going to be Rojas with Dylan Moore mixed in.
And maybe it's also a little bit dependent on how Cade Marlowe performs from here on out, because maybe they feel that Moore is a better option for them in left field than Marlowe. Sure. And that opens up second base for Caballero, Haggerty, Rojas, etc. So we'll see. But right now, as things currently stand, especially while Marlowe is still hot, I would like to see Moore getting the bulk of the playing time over at second. But it's not going to happen like that.
No. I mean, that is the beauty though of having versatility on the bench.
Yeah,
your bench is Canzone, Rojas, Moore, Marlowe, like whatever, any combination of those players, you can cover every position on the field with those 3 guys on your bench. So yeah, versatility is a nice little tool to have on the bench, and it's not something the Mariners have really had this year, but now they do, or in theory they do.
All right, more of your questions coming up here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Dave. No, not Sims or Niehaus. Dave is the banking app that's leaving the financial field. At one time or another, we've all needed a little financial help. That's why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash between paychecks. It can help you build credit by settling extra cash advances on time. When you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. So if you're in a pinch, get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/MLB. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/illegal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. That's dave.com/MLB. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/MLB. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen here on Mailbag Monday. The Mariners are off today, much needed off day. They also get an off day on Thursday. Sandwiched in between those off days, however, it's a 2-game series with the San Diego Padres. You can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So real quick, I failed to mention this on the show last night, but thank you guys so much for getting us to 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's an amazing accomplishment. And I didn't think we were going to get there this quickly, but or if at all. So yeah, thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for all the support and for helping continue to grow this wonderful community that Colby and I have built here. Also, our 2-year anniversary at Locked On is coming up on Wednesday. So is that a day game? I haven't checked the schedule. All right. So we're going to be doing a post-game show that day, but Thursday is an off day. So maybe we'll do something special to celebrate the anniversary. I don't know.
Ty's overcompensating because he forgot last year.
Do you guys have any ideas or any suggestions? Anything you would like us to do on the show to celebrate our 2-year?
Real fast. Actually, Thursday or Wednesday's game is a night game. I was mistaken. So yeah.
All right. So
should be a normal show.
So then Wednesday, is there anything we should do to celebrate our 2-year anniversary? Let us know in the comments below. Do you guys want us to reflect back on our 2 years or answer some questions for some of you that are new or anything? Let us know if you have any ideas down below. All right, let's get back into these questions here. Steve wants to know, after what we have seen lately from Tayler Saucedo, should he be trusted more in high leverage situations? Yes, for now, because you didn't go out and get that reliever to supplement the loss of Paul Sewald. You pretty much have to play the hot hand right now in high leverage situations, especially when Brash and or Munoz are not available like yesterday. And right now, Saucedo's the hot hand. And I actually believe in Tayler Saucedo a little bit beyond just him being the hot hand right now. And two things with that really is the slider and the changeup. He's shown an ability to throw the slider effectively, both against lefties and righties. Yes, hitters are hitting 258 right now off of that pitch, but they're only slugging 355. The slider right now against right-handed hitters, a third of the time is generating a whiff. 29.3% chase rate, and 50% of those chases are resulting in whiffs. And then that pitch is eating lefties alive right now. 45.9% whiff rate, 37.8% chase rate, and those chases 76.5% of the time are resulting in whiffs. The changeup has been an absolute weapon against righties. 171 average, 200 slug, and as we know, changeups, lefty changeups break away from righty hitters. He's only thrown that pitch against righties. 148 changeups so far this year, again, all against righties. 42.3% whiff rate on that pitch, 42.7% chase rate, 47.7% chase and miss rate. Those two pitches have been elite for Saucedo. And if you look at his Baseball Savant page, it is painted in red, which for those that don't know, it's very good. That means that he is in the upper echelon of most baseball analytics for relievers. And he's cooking right now. And we're seeing him now being put into these high leverage situations. And like we talked about yesterday, he's stepping up in a big way. So what do you think, Colby? Do you think we should trust Tayler Saucedo, at least for now?
I don't think you have a choice, thanks to the fine folks who work with and including Jerry DePoto and Justin Hollander. So that's the bed you made. So you got to lie in it. And so hopefully Tayler can continue to pitch well. And there's no doubt he has. And we'd started to see them start to use Saucedo in more high leverage spots anyways before the Seawald trade. So I think you're going to have to roll those dice and hope that, Saucedo doesn't turn back into a pumpkin, but at least there's, reasonable optimism that he can sustain somewhat close to what he's been this year. And just another really good bullpen find for this front office. It's crazy. The Mariners acquired Justin Topa, Tayler Saucedo, and Gabe Spire for the total cost of Joseph Hernandez, I believe. Is it Joseph Hernandez and 2 waiver claims?
2 waiver claims. Yeah.
And right now that's like the meat of the back end of their bullpen.
And this is what we said, man, during the offseason. I remember the exact day when they claimed both Easton McGee and Gabe Spire, and we said, these guys like on paper right now or whatever, like they're not really worth a segment to talk about, but with the Mariners, with relievers, you have to pay attention. And here we go. Lo and behold. I mean, we joked around with Jerry when he was on the show that, hey, Justin Topa, I have no clue who this guy is, but yeah, he's probably going to be a top 10 reliever in baseball. And, we weren't
pretty
that
close.
far off. We were
Pretty
not that
close.
far off. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just what the Mariners do, So we'll see if any of these guys actually turn into legitimate high leverage relievers over an extended period of time where you feel like actually you might have supplemented the loss of Seawald with one of those guys. But again, that's only something that we're going to learn with time here, but so far so good.
Yeah. I just want to say this though, before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for this winter when the Mariners trade Josh Rojas and like Isaiah Campbell back to the Diamondbacks for Paul Seawald. That is just going to feel so good.
Right. Or they non-tender
him. Yeah.
Yeah. They non-tender Seawald. Right.
It's rough go for Seawald so far over there. So maybe.
It's one game, and then he pitched in like a blowout in his first game and struck out.
Yeah, he struck out 3.
Yeah.
But whatever, they're out of it.
Why not? Yeah, maybe. That whole deadline for the Diamondbacks was kind of weird. This isn't Diamondbacks show, but just real quick, like getting Seawald, and then turning around and trading Andrew Chafin, who's been one of the better lefty relievers in what was the thinking behind that? I don't get that.
Maybe it's a money thing. I don't know. Those were because didn't they go and then acquire Tommy Pham too, though?
Yeah, and then that was after the Chafin trade. Like what?
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm pretty sure they got a prospect back from Milwaukee for Chafin. I don't think it was a major leaguer. So weird, very weird. Yeah. All right. Paul wants to know, in the off season and early season, Colby insisted that JP Crawford's swing was not sustainable. What has changed, Colby?
I don't know that I said his swing was not sustainable. I think I said it wasn't good. But one of the only things that's really changed is that he's lowered his hand slot a little bit. He used to be up back here, and now he's kind of down here by his shoulder instead of up by his ear. And that allows him to cover more of the plate with more authority. It's still, it's still just above average bat speed. It's not like an incredible whippy swing or anything like that. But JP's always been able to cover the zone, and because he's lowered his hands a little bit, the bat has less, it has less distance to travel to get to the ball. But yeah, I mean, I think, the thing that still is kind of annoying about JP is that he does the bat wrap thing. Like the cup of the bat will face the pitcher before he starts his swing. And that's just wasted movement in your swing. It's, it can be like a trigger for some guys. Like Sheffield used to do the little hand thing where he'd break his wrist before he started his swing. Yeah. And so sometimes that's just like basically a firing mechanism for guys. But yeah, JP wrapping the bat like around his head where the cup is facing the pitcher, that's still going to hurt him against higher velocity. But again, the bat speed is good. It's not great. It's good. And he has amazing zone coverage. So, yeah, if he can get to even more pitches than he could last time, and the bat, is traveling through the zone, for longer, with more velocity behind it, then yeah, he's going to hit the ball harder. So,
Right.
I don't know if I would say this. I wouldn't feel good about going into 2024 and expecting JP Crawford to be a 128 WRC plus guy like he is right now. I don't know that I would expect that. I don't think that's fair to expect. Would I say it's impossible? Is there something he's doing that's not repeatable? No, not really. So yeah, I mean, I think that there are some very serious probabilities that JP will regress some in 2024, but it is, when you make swing changes, when you make tweaks to your swing, that doesn't always mean that what's happening is a fluke. It means that you've made an adjustment and this is the new you. So do I feel comfortable saying JP is going to be like 30% above league average next year, like he has been so far this year? No. Yeah. Am I willing to allow for it to be a possibility because of, the obvious changes that have been made? Yeah.
Yeah. And not a swing guy. I want to make that very clear here, but the swing does look a little bit shorter to the ball. It doesn't look as long now. Like he still has elite plate coverage, but it doesn't seem like he's extending as much as he has in years past. And we don't obviously have the data on this. This is like something for True Media, which only a handful of people have actual access to, where you can find bat speed data. But it does seem like the bat speed has improved with what he was able to do over at Driveline. And hey, as far as 2024 goes, maybe there's another tweak or two that he makes at Driveline that adds another element here, that adds another wrinkle. But
let's calm down.
This
JP is plenty good.
This is very good. But in terms of just being able to sustain this or something close to it, maybe there is another tweak or two that he has to make in the offseason. All right, so we got a few more questions here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Before we get into those, however, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do till we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Therapy can be helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It can empower you to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you don't feel that your match is suitable for you, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen here on Mailbag Monday. Again, the Mariners are back at it tomorrow at T-Mobile Park against the San Diego Padres. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All right, we got 1, 2, 3 more questions to go here on Mailbag Monday. Check in here with Jake, who asks, do you think the Mariners could have just started the long-term downfall of the Angels? They're going to lose a huge crowd draw that they get with Ohtani. They didn't capitalize on the prospect return they could have gotten, and they could be bad for a long time. Yes, and on top of that, they further gutted an already bad farm system, right? So they don't really have... I mean, look, there is some talent there, right? And even some young guys that are on the ball club already, like Zach Neto, right? That are probably going to progress, that are probably going to be better than they are right now. Nolan Shanuel, the guy that they drafted with pick 11 in this year's draft, he's already in Double-A and he's crushing it. So he might be up with the ball club sooner rather than later, and he might be something there. I mean, they do have some talent, but overall, yeah, I think they've doomed themselves to a very long rebuilding process. And look, it's Southern California. They're still going to be able to attract free agents, but you no longer have the Ohtani card. And I don't think that Trout carries as much clout as he used to, because if I'm a player on the outside looking in, how many games do I think I'm actually going to get to play with Mike Trout on a season-to-season basis?
Right.
Like,
and you look at the rest of that roster and you go, okay, well, what else is there to carry besides Mike Trout? Nothing. Rendon's a nobody. He's a nothing. You probably like Ohapi, you probably like Neto, but those are unproven players at the end of the day. And despite having Ohtani and Trout this last winter, what big free agents did the Angels pull in?
Yeah.
Tyler Anderson.
Right. Well, and the other thing too
Brandon
is
Drury, like whoop-de-doo.
And the other thing too is money, right? Like they're paying Ohtani $30 million this year. So you essentially get $30 million that you didn't have this year, next year, right? Who knows if they actually reinvest that into the ball club, but spending money has really never been an issue for Art Moreno. He just hasn't spent it wisely. So that's the big difference there. So yeah, I think they'll be able to, add major league talent still. But they don't have a lot of interesting pieces in that farm to go out and trade for guys. And they are, at least to a certain point, because they are pushing the luxury tax even without Ohtani, right? As far as I'm aware, at least. I haven't looked at payroll recently, but they're not going to be able to go out and, do what the Rangers have done, right? And at least with what the Rangers have done, the Rangers have a much better farm system than the Angels. I think it's a little overrated, but it's still far better than what the Angels have right now. So they can't even really do that. So I think they're screwed right now. Like, I think they are.
I think one of the bigger issues with the Angels, though, is that they're never going to be terrible. Like, they're never going to be bad. They're going to win between 72 to 80 games every year with Artie Moreno at the helm, because he's just going to throw money at the problem, and he's not going to trust his baseball guys to, do what they need to do. And you look at, the Angels, their farm system was improving, granted slowly, but it was getting better. And then they went out and they exhausted a lot of capital for role players, at the deadline this year. And it doesn't look like that's going to work out for them. So yeah, I think because Moreno's there, I don't think that I just don't think that front office is going to be allowed to rebuild, so to speak. I think it's a lot like the 2010 Mariners before John Stanton took over, where it's like, no, you're not allowed to rebuild. You're going to, we won 85 games last year. You're going to go spend money so that we can win 85 games again, and we can win 85 games again. And we're not going to give you enough money to make the playoffs, but we'll give you enough money so that we can be relevant. Because at the end of the day, that is ultimately what Artie Moreno cares about. He cares about being relevant. He doesn't want to be the Dodgers' little brother. Doesn't really care about winning baseball games. He doesn't, because if he did, he would just trust his baseball people, but he doesn't. So, I think the Angels are basically set up to be what they have been for the last half decade, mediocre. And I think that's where they're going to stand for a long time.
So I looked into the payroll stuff. So they are very slightly over the luxury tax threshold this year. Next year, this is from Spot Track, which is not a very reliable source of information. It's iffy, like Colby's insinuating there. It says that they only have $133 million committed for 2024, but that's also not accounting for arbitration and stuff like that. So I don't know how all of that works out for them, and I don't know exactly what their true payroll is. But again, they're not going to have a ton of financial flexibility, and on top of that, they don't have a deep farm system either, where they can go out and trade for more affordable pieces that fit their payroll better. So they're in a weird spot right now, and I think they're due for a pretty long rebuild. But I also, like Colby, don't think that they're going to fully commit to that either, whatever that looks like, right? Because they're not going to trade Trout. They're not going to be, I don't think they could be able to trade Trout unless they chipped in a hell of a lot of money. And considering that they didn't trade Ohtani here, what makes you think they're going to need a ton of money to trade Trout? They're not. So yeah, they're in a rough spot. Don't envy them. And you know what? Good riddance. All right, Nate wants to know, it's premature, but hypothetically, would the Mariners go with a 3-man postseason rotation, or would they have to rely on Bryce Miller? Like we saw last year, you're going to have to use 4 guys at some point over the course of of the postseason, especially if you get deeper into it. If it's just the wild card series, and if that's all you do this year, you're only going to use 3 guys. Mathematically, you can only use a maximum of 3 starters. But if you get to the DS, you're going to have to use Bryce Miller. And I don't think it's Brian Wu. I don't think it's Emerson Hancock. I don't trust those guys enough, to be honest with you. It's not like I have a ton of faith in Bryce Miller either, but
exactly.
Picking the lesser of 2 evils, it feels weird to say evils, but
Sure.
For lack of a better term, to pick the lesser of 2 evils, it's Miller for me. So.
It's almost like you should spend a little freight to go fix that problem. But anyways, you're gonna have to use 4 guys, but that doesn't mean you have to use Bryce Miller for 6 innings, right? Hypothetically, if the Mariners do earn their way to the postseason and they get to a 5-game series or a 7-game series, you have your big 3 and you're going to use them as much as they can physically go. Mm-hmm. But for game 4, you could just Miller for 2 1/3, Wu for 3, you could kind of do it that way. And that's just kind of what you have to do in the playoffs anyway. So yes, you're going to have to use Miller in the playoffs if you get there. And if you get to a 5-game or 7-game series, you're going to have to use Miller, but it doesn't have to be in a traditional role. You don't have to, put him out there it's not like in the regular season where it's like, we need innings. Bryce, I'm sorry, you have to go give us 6 no matter how ugly it is. No, in the playoffs, all hands on deck. You do whatever you have to do. So I'm not too worried about the 4 and the 5 spot in a playoff series. Right. And plus, like you said, we got to get there first before I start to really dissect that.
Yeah, we do need to get there first. But just looking at last year, I think it becomes pretty clear what that would all look like for the Mariners. And again, as long as there are no injuries, which knock on wood here, as long as there's no injuries in the rotation, it would be Miller for me over Wu and Hancock pretty clearly, unless Emerson Hancock just blows me away, which I like Emerson Hancock more than Colby, but I don't think that's going to happen. So all right, last question of the day from Dylan. What is the more important weekend coming up, Baltimore or Houston? So got the best team in baseball and the Baltimore Orioles coming to town this weekend for Felix weekend. And then on the next road trip, the Mariners are going to Houston for the final time this year for a 3-game set with the Astros, who are a lot more healthy and they're playing better ball than the last couple times we've seen them. For me, the answer is pretty clearly the Houston series, because I still think that the division is more than well within reach for this team. They got to get on a run, and they're going to need some help. But I still think that they can make some noise in this division, and that series is going to be very important, because honestly, if I had to put money on it right now, given all the injuries that Texas has sustained, Josh Young just landed on the IL with a fractured thumb, I would pick the Astros to win this division. So that's who I'm gunning for. And so that series to me is massive for the Mariners. This weekend, though, that's not to diminish this weekend, because this weekend's going to be a really nice test for this team. This is a nice little heat check for the Mariners right now, because they and the Orioles have been neck and neck since July 1st in terms of who's been the best in baseball. And so, to see those two teams clash, and look, the Orioles are a team that you're probably going to see in October if you get there. They have a weakness where you have a very great strength, and that's in your starting rotation. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how those two things stack up in a 3-game series, just as a little bit of a preview for what might come in October. So what do you think, Colby?
The Orioles series is more important because it's next. Like the series,
Bill Belichick.
The series you play next is the most important series.
Sure.
So neither of those
Padres.
Series,
the Padres series is the biggest series of the 3.
Yes, until the last pitch on Wednesday night. Then it's the Orioles series. Then it's the Kansas City series. Then it's the Houston series. You can shake your head all you want, but I'm accurate, because
you should be a coach and not a podcaster.
If you're looking ahead,
of an answer.
If you're looking ahead to the Houston series, and you're not looking at the fact that you could easily go 0-5 this week, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't have, I'm not looking ahead beyond what I can see. And right now I need to get through this Padres series. I need to not give back the ground that I gained this last weekend. And the only way I could do that is to care about what happens against San Diego and Baltimore. So, yeah, if you want to go all technical with Ty's answer because Houston's in your division, I suppose that's more important. But tell you what, if you get swept by Baltimore, you get to that Houston series, and it might not matter what you do against Houston. So,
Sure.
yeah, you better focus up here, man. Nick Martinez is coming to town tomorrow, and he's looking for a shutout. So, yeah, you better win the series. Like, stop looking ahead.
Nick Martinez.
Stop looking ahead. Stop looking ahead to the last week of the season where you play Texas and Houston 7 times. Stop looking ahead to what happens after you finish with Baltimore, and look at the 16 of the 19 are against really bad teams. Oh, we're gonna feast. Stop looking ahead. Look at tomorrow.
that stuff. Like, come on, we've seen this team lose a series to the Nationals. We've seen this team lose a series to the Tigers. Now, look, they're a little bit of a different team than they were during those series, even though the Tigers series was only like 3 weeks ago. But like, still, Mariners are a very different team than they were in those series.
I'll tell you this: I bet the Mariners lose one of those series.
It's going to be the Kansas City one.
Maybe
Kansas City is cursed.
I mean, I think there's a 4-game set there, but Kansas City's actually playing decent ball right now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm saying, I bet they lose one of those series. They drop one of those series, everybody panics. Oh, playoff teams don't lose series like that, and we have to have the same conversation where it's like, yeah, they do.
Then we start talking about the offseason again. Yeah.
I mean, I won't be, but yeah. So,
well, no. I
don't know.
The collective we, as in the Mariners
they have 16
community.
games against like the worst teams in baseball.
Hmm.
They're gonna go like 10-6, right? And people are going to freak out that they didn't do enough. It's like, winning baseball games is hard, guys. It's really hard, even against bad teams. Just relax. Look at the game in front of you. Drive yourself crazy if you keep on looking ahead. Like I see people like, here's how we get to 90 wins, and they're breaking down like, you win 2 against San Diego, you win 1 against Baltimore, you win. What are you doing? Like, focus on today, tomorrow. That's it. Like, come on.
All right,
guys.
Mr. Word on to San Diego.
One day at a time. Good Lord.
Okay, Russell Wilson.
I will care about first of all, that's the meanest thing you've ever said to me. Second of all,
truthfully,
I will care about the Houston series when we get to it. Like, I can't. It's stupid to look in like people who are charting wins. Like, oh, here's how we go 30-20 down the stretch to get to 90 wins and all. That's dumb. That's dumb. It doesn't, because you can't look ahead. It's all about pitching matchups. It's about who's hot, who's not. It's all about travel. It's all about injuries. And those are all things we can't predict. So stop trying to do it. Just focus on tomorrow. We'll talk about the game. It'll be fun. Instead of driving yourself crazy, being like, oh man, if we only go like 11-8 in this 19 game stretch, like we're pretty much screwed, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe not. Just relax. One day at a time.
Got to go 1-0. Championship opportunity tomorrow.
90 feet is 90 feet. Like, just let's do this thing, okay? Relax. It's gonna be okay. They're gonna loot. They're gonna have a bad loss, by the way, guys. The bullpen's gonna blow a game at some point. That's not the time to jump off the ship. Okay, just relax. They're gonna lose 3 in a row at some point further down the stretch. Absolutely, they are.
Why are you so negative?
I'm a realist. All right.
You're being so negative, Colby.
No, reality is
unsubscribe.
Reality is like poetry, and most people hate poetry. Okay, but it's there.
Okay. All right. Sure. On that note, that's going to do it for our show. I don't know how to follow that up. Thank you so much for joining us here. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. Follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DANEGNZLZ. And Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. I don't even know why I continue to say that because we haven't updated either one of those pages in forever. And by we, I mean me. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode, though. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Padres tomorrow on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. And if you're still listening, again, let us know below. What should we do for our 2-year anniversary show on Wednesday? We'd love to hear your suggestions. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.